Have you ever wondered how you're doing financially in Japan? Well, I have, and it's actually a question I get quite a lot here on the channel. So, what's the average salary in Japan? How does my salary live up to other people's salaries, and so on? And what's the net worth situation? So, in this video, we're going to look at both of those. We're going to look at a couple of websites with information about average salaries in Japan and then average net worth in Japan. And the reason for doing this video isn't to make you feel bad or to put pressure on you because you're not. It's merely for kind of information purposes. It's kind of interesting. It's nice to see how you're doing, how your situation compares to other people's. Now, the main thing here, of course, is that this isn't particularly important. The important thing is not so much how much you make, but how much you keep and whether you're on track to meet your goals to make it to, where you want to be financially. That's the key thing and the main thing to keep in mind while watching this video. Now, we're going to start with average salaries in Japan, and we have pretty good data for this. So this is we're going to be looking at the MUFJ website, but these guys are using government data. So this is the government data from, I believe, 2023, and this is based on tax returns. So it's pretty solid data on income across the country. Right, let's take a quick look through this. There's a lot of data. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. We're just going to run through this fairly quickly. So first of all, we can see on this graph that incomes in Japan have been rising slowly over the last few years. Although sadly, for a lot of people, their income is not keeping up with inflation because the cost of living in Japan has also been rising quite a bit. This table shows us the average income over different prefectures. These are presumably the 10 richest prefectures in Japan, starting with Tokyo, of course. Tokyo quite a bit higher than the nearest one, which is Kanagawa, which might as well be Tokyo, to be honest. Then we've got Osaka, Aichi, Gunma, I think. I'm not too sure on some of these. We've got Nara, we've got Chiba, we've got Kyoto, we've got Saitama, and we've got what I believe is Tochigi. So these are all, prefectures either around Tokyo or around the kind of Osaka area, the two main urban areas in Japan, and presumably where more of the higher paying jobs are, which is what's pulling up these averages here. Next, we're going to look at average salary by age. And this is divided into three columns. So on the left here, we've got the average across the population, and then we've got the average male salary, and then we've got the average female salary. And obviously these are different, and there's lots of reasons for them to be different. So, it's the type of jobs perhaps that men have versus women have. It's the type of working conditions where more men are working full-time than women, perhaps in some age cohorts. And of course, there's probably some discrimination in there as well. So first of all, fairly obviously under 19, these people are not making a huge amount of money. Presumably, they left school after high school or possibly even after junior high school. They're presumably in training or, very much starter entry-level positions. The average income is just over 1 million yen. 1.3 for men, 0.9 for women in this age cohort. This data is quite nice because we've got 5-year kind of tranches here. So 20 to 24, much higher. This presumably people who've been working a bit longer from the non-university cohort, and then recent university grads. So 2.6 overall, 2.7 for men, 2.5 for women. Not a huge gap at this age, right? Next is 25 to 29, 3.9 overall, 4.2 for men, 3.5 for women. Bit of a gap starting to emerge here. And then in the 30s, it's about 4.5 overall. It's about just over 5 for men, and women start to go down at this point. Presumably, more and more women are leaving the workforce or moving to part-time work or taking time off to have children and so on, and that's what's causing this to fall here. 40s and 50s, the average is going up a bit. Men is going up quite a bit more. Women are going down still. And then 60s is when we see a fall in the average and in men's income. And this is probably because people are reaching retirement age. So in Japan, lots of countries have a mandatory, lots of companies. So in Japan, lots of companies have a mandatory retirement age. And once you hit that, you have to stop working, and then the company may rehire you, but they'll rehire you at a much lower salary, allegedly with fewer responsibilities. But that's what's happening here. People are either retiring or they're moving to a non kind of standard contract here. And then after 65, those numbers go down even more and into the 70s. So this is more or less what we might expect to see. This is the simple average for men, which is 5.6 million, average for women 3.1 million in Japan. Here we can see income divided by your education level. So people who finished high school, just over 4 million yen. People who finished Tandai, which is kind of a 2-year university, 4.2 million yen. People who finish Senmongakko, these might be technical schools, 4.3, university 5.1, and an MA 6.4. Now I have 2 MAs, and my income is certainly not averaged 6.4 million yen while I've been in Japan, sadly. So these are very much the average across the entire population. Now, this chart shows us income by sector. So for some reason, electricity, gas, water, these are utilities. The utilities have the highest average salary, and I'm not entirely sure why. It doesn't really seem to make much sense to me. After that, as we might expect, you've got finance, you've got IT, you've got engineering, construction, service. I don't know what this is. I'd have to check. Next is logistics, kind of shipping and so on, takubin types. Real estate, medical. I guess there's a lot of nurses and reception staff that work in medical field, which is pulling this down. Got shops and retail. This is forestry and fishing and so on. And then the final one, the lowest sector of all, is hotels and food and drink. Presumably a lot of the staff in this sector are part-time. So that's pulling that down. This table shows us your earnings in the first 4 years of working, first 10 years of working, and so on. And obviously, this is going to get more as you go on, except for women. Women seem to hit a wall in their 30s, and then after that, it goes down. And that's it for salaries in Japan. So the average salary in Japan, quite a lot lower than other countries at the moment with the weak yen and so on. And of course, it's going to make a difference where you live. So, a certain salary in Tokyo is going to be worth less than the same salary somewhere like Sendai or even in a rural area. And again, the important thing is not really how much money you make, but how you're using that money. So how much of it are you keeping? How much of it are you managing to save and invest? Are you able to have the lifestyle you want with that salary? And so on. All right, next, and actually for me, much more interesting, we're going to look at net worth numbers for Japan. And this data is a lot harder to get hold of. So this isn't official government data. I'm not sure the government has official data about people's net worth. Instead, this is from a survey run by, I believe, an insurance association. So they've surveyed people, they've asked them what their net worth is, and they've compiled that data. So this data is probably not as robust as the previous one, which was the government actual income tax records, basically. So this net worth data is largely talking about liquid assets. So that'd be like cash, shares, etc. I don't think it includes real estate or things like cars and possessions and so on, which for me makes sense. That's how I think about net worth. I don't include the value of my home in my net worth because I live there, and if I didn't live there, I'd have to live somewhere else or I'd have to rent and so on. So for me, it kind of zeroes out. I zero out the rest of my mortgage and I zero out the potential value of the home as well. So let's take a look at these numbers. We're going to start off here. And this is for people in their 20s. So 22% of people in their 20s don't have 1,000,000 yen. 10% have between 1 and 2 million, and the numbers go down from there up to the point where 0.1% of people in their 20s have 30 million yen or more. And this makes total sense to me. So people in their 20s, generally, they just started working, they're just getting used to having money and so on. They're not really thinking about saving and investing in the future. So it's completely normal for people not to have very much in the way of savings, in the way of net worth. I only started getting into the idea of personal finance and thinking about the future in terms of money and what I was doing with my money around when I was 30, and that was due to a life event. And in my experience, that's what happens. People tend to, something happens and then you start thinking about about money, whether it's, you get married or you have a child or, a family member dies or you lose your job or something happens that makes you start thinking about money in more seriously, basically. All right, this chart is for people in their 30s. So same thing, 13% of people in their 30s don't have 1 million yen in liquid assets, and so on. But now 4% of people have more than 30 million. So there's a big change here. People are starting to get serious about money. Also, they're starting to earn more. And this is really important because obviously, if you don't earn very much, it's really hard to save money and put money away to invest and so on. People in their 40s, 10% of people don't have 1 million yen. 6% of people have more than 30 million yen. People in their 50s, for the first time, more people have 30 million yen than don't have 1 million for people in their 50s. So 9.6% of people have less than 1 million yen, and 10.7% of people have more than 30 million yen. Huge change for people in their 60s. So 6.6% of people don't have 1 million yen in their 60s. That is a terrible situation. Do not put yourself in that situation, please. This is why I started Retire Japan. This is why I run Retire Japan, to make sure that people don't end up in their 60s with no savings and no investments. It's a terrible place to be. It's something that you want to avoid at all costs. And the way to avoid it is to start thinking about money, start saving, start investing a lot earlier than your 60s. But here we can see that almost 20% of people have more than 30 million yen. And there's a very good reason for this, and that is the retirement bonus system here in Japan. So in Japan, when you get close to retirement, when you finish working at a company, a lot of the time you would get a retirement bonus. This is tax advantage. You get a lump sum of cash, and often it's quite big. So it's 10 million yen, it's 20 million yen, it's 30 million yen that you're getting in cash when you finish working. And lots of people use that to pay off the mortgage, and then they use it to supplement their pension in retirement. And unfortunately, this system's kind of winding down. So it's becoming a bit less common here in Japan. And that's basically why we have Iveco, why we have NISA, and why the government's trying to encourage people to make their own provision for retirement, because these kind of old systems are slowly going away or becoming less common. People in their 70s, fewer of them have no money. This is good. So 5.7% of people have less than 1 million yen, and about the same amount of people have 30 million yen. So this is very common, where people have, they have savings that they're going to use in retirement, but they tend to not use them because they're being cautious. So they don't want to, spend down their money too quickly. So they end up not spending it down at all. And obviously, this is suboptimal. This is something that, if it's likely to be a problem for you, there's a book called Die with Zero, which is a really, really thought-provoking book that I recommend in that situation. Now, this table is super interesting as well. So this is the type of household. So the average net worth for a single person is just under 10 million yen. The average net worth for a married couple is 1.5 times that, so just over 15 million yen. And this is very common. So living together, being married tends to have a positive effect on your finances, whether it's from, synergies, you spend less as a couple than you would as two single individuals, or just that married people tend to have more stable kind of financial lives. But yeah, it's quite common to see this in different countries. Next is a married couple with a child. That's a bit less. Obviously, children cost money. So if you have children, you're probably spending your money on them rather than saving and investing it. The next one is for a married couple living with the parents, and presumably the parents' net worth is also included in this. It's a bit higher. And I'm not sure what other is in this situation. But yeah, other is more than a single person, but less than a married couple. So I guess this might be a single parent, perhaps. I'm not too sure. Okay, so there's two versions of this table. I think they're both useful. The top one is people who have savings only. So they've excluded people who don't have savings from here. And the bottom table includes people who don't have savings, which of course is going to bring the average down quite a bit. So let's have a look at both of these. Personally, I would look at the upper table if you're trying to think of benchmarks, if you're trying to figure out where you are within society, because people with no savings at all, I think it's probably better not to include them in this data. So for people with savings and investments in your 20s, the average is 2.6 million yen of net worth, and the median is 1.2. Now, the median is a statistics term. So basically, the average takes everyone and averages out the money. And the problem with the average is that if someone is incredibly rich, they're going to distort those figures. They're going to bring the average up quite a bit. So, if Bill Gates was in a room with 100 different people, everyone would be worth, $1 billion on average. Whereas in reality, that's not in any way true at all. Whereas if you took the median, you would just look at the middle person. You'd line everyone up with Bill Gates at one end and the guy with zero at the other. And the guy in the middle would be the median. And that might give you a more realistic picture. So that's what this is. It's basically 1.2 million is the median. This is probably more realistic for people in their 20s. People in their 30s, a huge jump. So the average is now 8.7 million. The median's 3.1. I think if thinking back to in my early 30s, I was probably closer to this median, about 3 million yen in net worth. 40s, the average is 11 million yen, and the median is 5. And then 50s, the average 17 million yen, and the median is 7. And then 60s, once those retirement bonuses hit, we're looking at 25 million yen average, 12 million yen median. And this is good because a few years ago, when the government released that report that said people would need to supplement their nenkin by having cash savings, they recommended having at least 20 million yen in cash savings for a married couple who was going to receive nenkin. And so the average married couple, it seems, is going to have at least that in this cohort, assuming that they have savings and investments. And then again, just like before, we can see in the 70s, those numbers haven't gone down all that much. So people have these resources. They're not really spending them in retirement. They're being very careful with their net worth. Now, if we look at the numbers that include people with no savings and investments, we have a really different picture. So I guess there's quite a lot of people with no savings and no investments, and that's what's bringing down these numbers in particular. So for people in their 20s, that's 1.5 million average. 100,000 is the median. So I guess that makes sense, but it's pretty depressing, and you wouldn't want to be in this median or below cohort. 30s, 6 million average, 1.3 median. 40s, 8 million average, 1.8 median. So much less for these numbers. So basically, the population as a whole looks like this. People who have savings and investments look like this. All right, so what's the takeaway, right? I always say that, learning things is nice, but the only thing that matters is that you take action. The takeaway, I guess, is to look at these numbers, maybe go back, pause the video, look at the numbers themselves, and think about where you are in here. And then think about your goals. What are your goals for retirement? What are your goals for financial independence? What are your goals for financial resilience? So having the savings and investments that you need to deal with setbacks and make sure that your life doesn't get derailed and so on. And think about whether you're going to meet them. If not, what action you might be able to take to, increase your income, decrease your spending, save a little bit more, and make sure that you're bulletproof going forward. Also, it would be really interesting to get some data from the foreign resident community in this way. So, if you're happy to, and even anonymously in the comments, if you'd like to leave a comment with, your income at the moment, how old you are, maybe your net worth, let us know how you're doing. That'll give us some more data points. And I think that would be fairly interesting as well. Also, if you've got any questions about this data or about anything around this topic, I'd be really happy to see those in the comments as well. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.